Welcome back to another episode of JobTopia, the learning and development podcast. We have taken on a lot of new clients actually out of the branch that I'm working in. And I think you guys know this, we're involved in automotive, EV, solar. We just signed a big contract with an automotive OEM manufacturer, and we're deep into the EV space. And it's great touring these operations. These operations are literally multi-billion-dollar installments. And some of these installments have warehouses attached. Others have manufacturing separate from the warehousing solution. And then they have some staging around it. But the warehouses are located within a couple of miles and things are kind of shipped over. So I've got a chance to see how a lot of these operations work. And it was really important to me that we really kind of bring all the advancements, all the challenges that's happening in the world of warehousing and fulfillment. It may not sound like that sexy of a topic, but I tell you, you order something, Caleb, and then, you get an email, your shipment's been delayed for a week. Suddenly you're like, maybe I should be a little more attentive to what's happening here. I'm kind of not getting my dog food here on time from Chewy. Right.
Yeah,
I mean, you just never know.
absolutely. And I think one of the cool things about it is, right, is like all these robotic systems and capabilities, and people see like on the news and media all the time. They don't think about it everyday operations, right? Like these different capabilities are literally delivering their packages to their door and fulfilling their packages. So I think it's a really cool opportunity and topic to talk about with people because they just see the package show up their door. They don't realize all that goes on behind the scenes. So it's really fun for people to learn about.
They have no idea just how complicated this is. But I'm kind of curious though. I mean, you being a young guy, this is an engineered solution, that you're looking at. You're looking at top hat engineering. You're looking at, how do we optimize and create the absolute best, warehouse solution. So how does, a young engineering naval, thank you for your naval officer. Were you an officer in the Navy? I'm sorry, I
I
shouldn't say
was.
officer. Okay, you were. That's what I thought.
Yes.
Oh God, I'm gonna screw this up.
And
Um,
I actually went to the Naval Academy, but I was commissioned as an officer in the Marine Corps. So I actually served in the Marine Corps for roughly about 6 years.
yeah, one of my good buddies is a Marine, and one of my other very good friends, his son just graduated from the Naval Academy. So there's it's all around me. My parents were not at all involved in military. It was really kind of out of my mind. So I've learned, much more respect, as I've grown older and come to really appreciate all the freedoms we have in America. So again, how does a young guy end up in this kind of complicated engineered space?
Well, I can tell you it's probably very different from when I got started to where it is now because the industry is just exploding. Number one is everybody starting to see that tide change starting around middle of 2015, 2014-ish. Everything started to really, and these big companies started pouring a lot more money into how do we reduce not labor. Reduce the amount of work that's having to be done on every single package that's leaving our facility, right? That's one of the key things. How can we be more efficient? How can we be able to accomplish more packages? How can we be able to deliver to more customers in a more timely response effort? So you see a lot of different opportunities there. And how do you get started? Honestly, software engineer, mechanical engineer, electrical controls engineer, technician for people that don't even want to go to college. There are so many different roles and opportunities to get into it these days, and it's only ever expanding. So I would say the best thing in opportunity is just trying to look out for what the upcoming capabilities are and try to find just a way to get in the foot in the door because it's ever expanding. It really is. And I found my opportunity just by a friend. He purely said, this is a great company to work with over here. I recommend you apply. I think it'd be great as a software project manager. That's how I got my start.
You started in software engineering, and then, but so what was the journey into entrepreneurship and then to this, top hat?
Great question. And honestly, it was big given because a great mentorship, but also giving a lot of learning experience and valuable learning experience between the different customers that I got to work with. I got to see how each different customer was handling their warehouse operations a little bit differently. Different technologies were being utilized. I mean, you got to think some customers, like you think like IKEA, they're handling large products, right? And then you think like individual Coke, Pepsi, those type of people, they're dealing tiny little projects. So every single one's been very different. So I started off in software consulting, got a little bit more understanding under our belt, and started kind of advancing. Then one of my customers actually requested that I come actually build a team inside of them to actually do their warehouse projects individually. So I spent 6 years over at Staples, probably one of the best experiences I've ever had because now I'm working right alongside with my end customer, right? The operations team, the backbone of America who works inside these facilities that has to deal with all the pains that have to go at every single day to day operation. So getting to see what they needed out of the different solutions we were implementing was valuably important to my progression because until you actually work on that side, you don't really know. You do a project, you implement, and you move on to the next project. But when you're working day in, day out to improve the solutions, to make sure it fits their needs, there's second chances than none to that experience.
That's the best kind of consultant, someone who's actually come out of the space. They
Yes.
just walk into an environment, they just instantly know. You walk into a warehouse and you probably have 10 red flags that go off in your mind immediately because you've been into so many. And of course, you've worked for some of the largest organizations. So you could see how these, innovative ideas were built in to help. And we've started to see in some of the warehouses and manufacturing facilities, there's a subtle change that's occurring, not just with AI, but with robotics. You've got these kind of old, antiquated systems that are now starting to become streamlined, where you've got like one cell where one person is kind of working and all the materials are coming to them. It's like a
Mhm.
single point of operation. So I'm curious, as you go in now and you see these different setups, how would you describe really what the current state is and what some of the big problems that the general warehousers are having across their multiple systems?
I think the big thing is I look at the warehouse solution as a whole. There's multiple different parts to it. You have the material component. The materials can be your robots, they can be your conveyor systems, your racking, or whatever else that goes inside. You have the software element. The software element's what's pulling all the data from the individual associates to the actual hardware that's being installed. And then lastly, you got the human element, right? Your actual operators who are inside these facilities. So all three of those things have to be working in perfect harmony to make sure that everything's working well. And I say a lot of people in the manufacturing and distribution and fulfillment space are choosing to go more hardware, right? They see that return on their investment a lot quicker, meaning that is a capability I can see. It makes a difference. It's going to transport packages from point A to point B. The operations element I can control is the area where I see that I can add more staffing or reduce staffing as needs arise. But then that other layer, that software layer is what ties everything together. And to be honest with you, that's where I see the biggest gap is in this industry today.
All right, so I understand that software is probably one of the biggest gaps in that area of three. So are there vendors and software solutions that you have found that you are comfortable with, or have you found yourself now wanting to get into software development yourself into a SaaS model? What's your vision on this gap? What's your solution for this problem?
100%. That's really our bread and butter. That's our main product, which is Clarity, is our software. That's what ties those three elements between hardware and machinery to people, operations, all within one platform. Because it's been a big gap. It's been a big gap for a long time. So you have OEMs who are basically building the robotic systems and they're building their own software package. But that software package is just one portion of the equation within a whole warehouse. All the other operations outside of those robotic capabilities and system capabilities aren't unified under that software package, right? And it is completely separate. So now I have to get an additional software package to basically run everything that's non-conveyable, is not put through these robotic systems. So now I've got an additional software layer. So as mentioned, the software piece within these warehouses, I've known customers run 10 to 25 different software systems within one warehouse, making
Good
understanding
Lord.
the complexity of all these different software systems to make decisions is extremely difficult. Like if you were put in charge of a fulfillment center, Tony, for your first day, trying to make sense of all this data is extremely challenging, extremely hard, and it's only by interpretation, right, to unify this. So what we've really said is like there needs to just be one software platform that an operations team can go to that unifies where my labor is at, where my inventory is at, where my product is at, as well as what all the automation, hardware, conveyor systems, robotic systems are doing within one platform. So therefore, I'm having one system deliver me automated decisions versus 25 different systems where I'm just looking at data metrics and then trying to make decisions out of that. So that's been our big goal here at Top Hat Engineering, and it's been a gap for a long time.
It sounds like you're really taking a big swing at this because you're not just nibbling at the edges. This is the unifier. You're the unifier.
That's it. That's it. That is literally our goal, because I think about it from the perspective of someone running a data operations. I mean, think about fulfilling 400 some thousand orders a day out of one warehouse. Being able to perfect the efficiency of that warehouse operations, which you're mandated to do, is extremely complicated. So you put yourselves into that perspective, a one center hotspot to unify all this is extremely important and is in extremely high demand right now.
Yeah, and I could see where, and I hope people don't roll their eyes, when I talk about AI again, because, it is transforming everything that we do. But let's just call it data analytics. Let's just call it metrics. When you have all of your operations tied into one platform, it can start intelligently looking ahead and determining for you where are the hot spots, where are the cool spots, and that helps you optimize. You talked about at the top about, it's possible that these types of systems could help reduce people. What it also does is it helps you deploy the right people at the right times
100%.
to meet those to meet those demands. And because if you're pushing that kind of throughput out, you really do. You need a complete AI system, if you will, I think. Otherwise, you're just looking at spreadsheets and trying to, guesstimate, which is what they've done in the past. I mean, I'm sure it's fine up to that point, but it's too expensive now to make a miss. Customers are very finicky. You miss a few shipments, you miss a few things, and you'll destroy your brand's reputation. And if you're a fulfillment house for brands, that's the death knell.
100%. And I would actually say, on average, 99% of our customers do not have a tool like that. They're guessing every single hour, every single minute of every single day, what operational decisions need to be made based on their interpretation of the data at that specific point in time, right? So to your point, yes, our software uses machine learning. I can't say AI because it's customer data, right? So it's not restricted and open to the open internet, but we are using machine learning, and it requires a comprehensive and robust software solution to be able to make those decisions and interpret that data for you. So you're not just looking at graphs and pie charts all day and then making a decision, right? Like your tool should be telling you based on the data feed into it, what you should be doing and how you should be allocating labor to make sure that your warehouse operations is running successfully.
So I heard this stat, Caleb, that of 100% of warehouses, maybe 15% have any sort of robotics or automation. I imagine you said you see very few of these organizations that have the right kind of software solutions, probably even less than that. Yes?
I would say much less than 15%. Most warehouses that we go into, and obviously your top 20 customers, like your Fortune 20, your Fortune 50s and stuff, they've got tools, they've got some automation, they got capabilities. But outside your Fortune 50, I would say you start to see that go downhill pretty quickly, because especially your middle market, your smaller market between basically if you're doing 2 million all the way up to basically $1 billion in revenue is what we call that middle market. very few do those individuals actually have automated systems. So it is a lot more open than most people think. And I think a lot of it has to do with just obviously how much these things cost from a project perspective. But also
Right.
it is some of these operations see it as a risk too, right? It is cool to see robots and things moving inside your warehouse, but it's obviously a risk. If these robots go down, what happens to my warehouse, right? So a lot of people see that risk flag just as much as they do as the capital flag.
Yeah, I imagine you spend a lot of time in change management, as you try to get them into this new world of, intelligent machine learning and support, decision support for how they run their operation. So I'm a business guy, so I like to look at it from this point of view in terms of like what an ideal customer looks like. The ICP. I know you've spent a lot of time on this. You just mentioned mid-market, 2 million to roughly a billion, roughly is kind of what you would call mid-market. That's a huge gap, by the way. Where do you find that your entry point has been most accepted in that spectrum?
More on the higher scale. The more revenue a company is able to do, obviously, the more capital they're able to invest in newer technologies, and they also feel the ability to take those risks. So I'd say the more higher end. So that's the reason why I still don't see a ton of customers in that middle market, definitely not to lower market, is being able to take advantage of these new capabilities. But even a small project that is low capital, people are scared of just because of the risk. I mean, I look at supply chain as a whole. I go back to that backbone of America type of worker, right? They are used to working hard. That's why I love my customers and who I work with. The personalities are just fantastic to work with because they want to work and they want to work hard every single day. They don't like some concepts of robots or automation coming in because they feel it could be taking advantage of that, right? They're not able just to put more labor at it or work harder to push the package out the door. But definitely those higher end customers see the advantage. They say that, and I'd say that most labor markets today struggle to find the resources to backfill those positions. And I know we're talking about staffing a little bit too. Like staffing these warehouses is a challenge. So it's one of those things where they not only have to look at it from the ROI and what is my return on this investment from an overall labor and efficiency perspective. They also have to look at it as what does the labor market look like? And am I able to continue to fill all the positions required to perform the functions in my daily warehouse operations? And most big customers will tell you it's not feasible. In a lot of markets, they're having very severe labor challenges. And that's where automation can really help out with some of those labor challenges.
Yeah, there's a number of factors at play. You've got a population that is being convinced that they need to go to college. And you've got these working age young guys who think they need to go to college, but they really don't have any. There really is no need for them to go to college because of the degrees or what their end goals are. They don't require that. If you want to be an accountant, an engineer, something in science, obviously you need the hard skills. But for many other roles, you really don't need it. So what happens is you have all the men. And I say men, it's men and women, but in the warehouses, we see a lot of heavy lifters. So we are talking about predominantly men, but in truth, it's men and women. So men and women, they're being told they need to go to college. And they come out and they have some level of debt. And they have an expectation of the type of job that they want. But in reality, there's a lot of good blue-collar, entry-level roles that you can come in. And to your point, start in a warehouse. You work yourself up. You become a line supervisor. You become a shift supervisor. You could become a general manager, and you just never know where your career path is going to take you. But you're in and among all those people and systems and vendors, and good people stand out, and they get sucked into other roles in other parts of the company. It's just kind of how it starts. You just have to put a good foot forward in a lot of those areas. And another thing that I've noticed, particularly here in Georgia, Caleb, is our governor has been very aggressive at attracting foreign businesses to set up manufacturing and warehousing plants, greenfield operations. Here's the challenge. They don't move into Atlanta. They move into a little bitty town that's far from a metro area. So the number of people they have to pull from is very
Hmm.
small. And I think to your point, for America to go through this manufacturing revolution that we're on the very cusp of, we just keep seeing new trade deals being signed literally almost every day now, every month for
Hmm.
sure. So we know there's going to be an enormous amount of resources and money put into American manufacturing. Where are these people going to come from?
Yes.
We need systems like what you're developing. People shouldn't think this is taking jobs. No, no, no. This is going to make quality of life, I think, better for the people who are there. Am I wrong with that thinking?
No, you're absolutely correct. And I mean, you think about a big manufacturer, a big warehouse distribution center, you're looking at about a 3 million square foot facility, right? I mean, that's a massive facility. So to be able to put that in a economically viable location, it's got to be in a place where you can get the real estate for cheap. It's got to be close to big transit areas where I can get the product on the highway systems or in an airport really quickly to be able to ship. So that's concentration of where the warehouse is going to go. The second aspect to your point is the labor. Can I be able to substantiate the operation with the labor? So in these smaller pockets of America that are getting some of these locations, you're absolutely right. It is going to be an economic explosion because it's a lot more jobs, a lot more opportunities. And the machinery and automation is going to be increasing to make sure that the sufficiency of the operation continues regardless of the labor market, but it's also opening up tons of jobs. I mean, techs back in the day, made $50,000, $60,000. I can tell you right now, the tech market right now, you're making over six figures with no college degree as long as you're good at what you do, right? So it's exposing more jobs because they need people to take care of the system. They need people to understand the operations of the system. They needed people to actually even write SOPs for future plants builds, right? So there's a lot more job opportunities that created through these automation. But to your point, as far as like doing the day-to-day operations, like there's going to be less job opportunities. However, the caveat is those same people are choosing to choose like Uber. Like we have talked about this many times, like Uber drivers and these
Oh,
jobs, people are going to sit in comfort of their car. That's great. Short term, I understand it. Long term, your career and pay can increase substantially more in 10 years if you're actually getting your boots on the floor in some of these warehouses, learning the trade scraps and learning the skill sets, and you're going to be a lot better later on.
you need to upskill. And I look at this as skill stacking. And you and I have not talked about this before, but I'm sure you would agree, given your background and the hard work and the the effort you've put in to get to where you are. You skill stack.
Hmm.
You learn something and then you add something new and something new and something new. And by learning how an operation works, how a warehouse or a fulfillment center operates, now you're better prepared for the next job or whatever that may be. And you've done that yourself. You've seen and you've added on, and you keep adding on. And now you've got to the point where you see an opportunity to start a SaaS.
Yes. Yes, and that's the key piece around this field. Is like there's so much knowledge to gain. You got to learn operations. You got to learn mechanical engineering, a little bit of electrical engineering, a little bit of software engineering. There's so much that comprises this industry. Hence why the job markets in this industry are only going to keep going up and up and up because consumers want their product at a low cost. Right. Well, how are you going to maintain that low cost with now manufacturing moving to the US? So now our prices are going to go up a little bit. Where the supply chain piece is we have to keep cutting costs between EV vehicles to reduce our basically fuel costs, some of these warehouses, and then the automation side of things. We're keeping the cost low so consumers are happy at the end of the day. So absolutely, not only is there a big job market opportunity in this, but the platforms in engineering is only going to get better and better and more sophisticated. On average, this industry is basically increasing 30% year over year. That's a substantial growth model. And that's because all of our former retail stores that we're used to going to, people don't like to go to. They like e-commerce, right? So everybody's switching to that e-com model, and it's moving there, and it's moving really rapidly. So now it's more of people have to open up their idea of what this market can actually mean for them long term, and how technology is really driving that market to a completely different value set than it was 10 to 15 years ago.
I'm just really impressed thinking about all these disparate systems that you have figured out how to put into one software platform. I'm still trying to wrap my head around how you're collecting all those different data points in real time and giving the customers a dashboard that they can operate from. I'm just madly impressed with that. I mean, that's not my skill set. So I'm thinking, good Lord, how did you put that together? And kudos. I mean, there is such a need for that. And the fact that you can then also layer in, Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, i.e., different levels of automation and robotics. That's pretty exciting. You must be, I can tell why you smile a lot. I think you're kind of looking ahead. You're like, there's so much here for you to tackle.
I'm just really happy. We have a great company with a great reputation coming right out of the gates. And what's really people love about our product more than anything else is, like I said, that unifying view. We come from a customer focused view. And in order to be able to develop product that we have, you have to have that perspective. You've had to spend some quality time looking at the lens of the solution from a customer. Of how do I manage my operations? How do I implement all this new technology that's going across the board within one dashboard? And it's really cool to be able to see it. So we've got like 5 different modules for our customers. For example, like Clear Flow is our key one that customers thrive off of. It's what's developing the sequence of how do I release work to individual workers? How do I release work to individual systems to ensure that it's maximizing the efficiency based on the process flow that we set up? And then we have Clear Gear that manages all the automation. So between those goods to person type robots, Tony, that you were talking about earlier, that's bringing the products to an individual employee, to the conveyor systems, all of that's under our Clear Gear. We have Clear Slot, which manages all the inventory within a warehouse. So we're understanding obviously what's being used, what's not being used, how to manage that inventory process, and most importantly, our Clear Team, which manages all of our labor. So we understand when Susie clocks in, where she's actually being able to be assigned to, how fast is she working. So most important things is the workers that these companies are able to maintain, they can recognize is that Susie is outperforming everyone else because of these are her metrics. And that's what's missing is now we're saying Susie's doing a lot and she needs to be paid accordingly because of that. A lot of employers want to be able to use these incentive factors, but they don't have the data at hand to be able to identify how to pay and reward employees successfully. So we're bringing all these capabilities into our platform because now these are the core values that these warehouses truly need to know and understand. And that's the biggest value that I can say. It's not only are we reducing labor with how we sequence the work, released all these individual areas, but more importantly, we're providing it in one comprehensive package. So the operations knows at any given point in time how their facility is running against their key performance indicators and metrics.
I'm just curious you may or may not know from the scope of your work, but have you noticed there's a few industries just from your own, just personal anecdotally that seem to be doing better than others?
I would say retail and apparel is doing really well compared to others. And the reason why is because of the demand.
E-com. You mean e-com?
Yes, purely e-com. E-com is doing a really good job because the fluctuations. Sales between branding and accepting new brands, they've had to respond the quickest relation to their customers. They're the ones who spent the most money and investment into making sure that they're able to track that well, to make sure they get the customer is able to get the lowest value for the product. So I would say the key thing is e-com doing a really good job of it. Distribution, they're still catching up. I think e-com is just blowing everybody else out of the water in that perspective.
I think there's a lot more we can talk about. I think the overview you've given us and a kind of an insight into your SaaS model, it was a little more in depth than I thought, and that's a nice surprise because you and I spoke just very briefly before we had this conversation. So you really have a lot more going on than I was even aware of. I certainly hope that I can see more of this technology in our clients because, as I said, this is a quality of life enhancer. I don't think in any way, I don't see it as a threat. That's just my opinion because as we've alluded to, that one person who's working better and faster and more efficiently than everyone else really does deserve that pay raise. And if you're a temp agency, wouldn't it be nice if you knew that some of the temps that you were putting out to work were actually being recognized for working better than the others, and they get hired on? Now they're a permanent employee, and now they're a flag bearer for your organization that says, yeah, no, we got them from Timpl.
100%.
They did a great job. We should hire more people from them. Sure, maybe the overall volume goes down, but listen, the turnover will absolutely destroy your margins. So anything to keep great people safe, more efficient, it's a win-win for everybody. And I'm just thrilled to know that you're out there, working in this same space. We're kind of compadres, in that warehouse, tackling the problem from two different sides.
Yes. And most importantly, too, I think people love working around technology. They shouldn't be scared of it. More importantly, we've learned from our customers that the people that work around technologies actually stay at the company longer. They don't see it as boring anymore. They look at what they do as fast.
Interesting. That kind of fits the common sense model to me. And again, that's what I'm talking about, the upskilling. Maybe someone they're a little more adept. They realize, hey, I think I could, I'm familiar with this. I've been around it. Maybe I should, go back to school, go to trade school and figure out how I can, work on these things and, upskill and make more money. Caleb, this is great. I'm so glad we had a chance to briefly get an overview of Top Hat Engineering and all the different work you're doing with the large fulfillment centers. I certainly hope more of the mid-market and small market, they wake up and start adopting and implementing some of your great ideas. What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Best way is reach out and actually go to our website, tophatengineering.com, or if you're interested in our software solution, it's actually clarity-ws.com. And then just fill out our little customer contact form, and our actual solutions advisors will reach out to you, just discuss specifically the problems that you're working with. We're not into selling market. That's really where our customer value comes in. We're in the listening market. We want to really, truly understand what your concerns are and figure out the best solutions on how to address them.
I should have learned that lesson years ago. Great advice from Caleb. All right, everybody.
Thanks so much for having me.
Great seeing everybody.
Really
we'll see you next time.
Thank you.